Hello everyone and welcome to Intersession 2026. I am recording this video to get through a few basics about how our class is set up. We have a very short time together, so I want to make sure that we all start off strong on the same page about expectations. All right, so to begin, first I will go through a short introduction of myself so you know who's teaching in this class, where I'm coming from. I might have had some of you in class before, so that's really cool. I always love having repeat students. And for those of you who I haven't had before in like an in-person class, I hope that I get to meet you in person at some point during your time at OCC. All right, so I'll go through an introduction of myself, then I will talk about the course expectations, and that's pretty much all I have for this. All right, so my name is Professor Jessica Gonzalez. You can call me Professor Dr. Gonzalez, that's fine, anything like that. And I want to tell you a little bit about my education and training because I also started at a community college. I went to IVC straight out of high school, and it was one of the best decisions that I ever made. So I commend you all for making that decision, whether you're straight out of high school, you've been at OCC a couple years, or you're coming back to school later on in life. I think that community colleges serve a wonderful role in our community, and so I'm really excited to be here. After IVC, I transferred to UCLA. I was a political science and philosophy double major there. Started off as political science. I needed a few extra courses just to fulfill my requirements, and I took some philosophy classes and absolutely fell in love with the discipline. So after UCLA, then I went to Cal State LA for my master's in philosophy. Wonderful experience there. It was really cool to have this perspective of both the UCs and the Cal States. So I've really brought that with me through the rest of my higher education. After I finished my master's at Cal State LA, I found myself, life brought me unexpectedly to the Big Island of Hawaii, where I taught at a community college out there, Hawaii Community College. It was one of the best experiences of my life. I was on the Big Island in Hilo for 8 years, and I am so grateful for that time. I miss it every day. But Orange County brought me back home. This is my home. I'm born and raised here, so I'm happy to be back. But I really cherished that time that I had in Hawaii, both at Hawaii Community College and UH Hilo. The UH system is made up of 10 campuses. So if you ever find yourself transferring or thinking about going to school in Hawaii, I would love to talk to you about that as well. After my time in Hawaii, like I said, I found myself called back to Orange County, and I went to my dream PhD program at UC Irvine. UC Irvine is super special because they have two philosophy programs there. They have one which is in their Department of Philosophy is in the Humanities School. They do amazing work over there. A lot of the work that they do there will kind of get bits of here in our class. In fact, our textbook is edited by a professor in their philosophy department over there, Duncan Pritchard. I went to a different program at UCI in the School of Social Sciences called the Department of Logic and Philosophy of Science. And it's a more specialized program, meaning that they, in that program, we're looking more directly at philosophy of science, of course, a lot of mathematics, logic. They have great philosophy of physics programs, and I was doing philosophy of mathematics. That's what got me started there. But by the end of my experience there, I was doing moral cognition. I was looking at how our moral cognitive processes work, like how we think about morality, what neuroscience can tell us about how we make moral decisions, and what kind of philosophical significance we can find in that sort of research. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that in our week one discussion, just give you a little bit more about what exactly I was looking at. After I finished up at UCI, I got my PhD in 2023, and I started at Orange Coast College. So I am very excited to be in the classroom teaching again. When I was in Hawaii starting my teaching experience, I just developed this passion for it. And, then thought maybe I do want to go into research, hence the PhD. I'm very happy to be in the classroom. And it's especially exciting because I find that the work I did during my PhD program can come in very handy, and it can be really a great way to mentor students and tell you what to expect if you decide to go into a PhD program. And the reason why I like to share all of that is because right now you're probably in this beginning stage of your higher education career. And I want to encourage you to think about what options are out there. When I was at IVC, I did not think that I would be back in a community college as a professor one day. So that was just not on my radar. It's something that I started to think about when I was getting to about this stage between UCLA and Cal State LA, right? At Cal State LA, getting my master's, I, of course, knew that that would prepare me to teach. And at that point, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go into teaching or research. But those sorts of things just kind of emerge and make themselves clear along the way. So I think that it's really cool to be able to share those experiences so that you have more options open to you. You can kind of think about what that might entail, what that life might look like. So this is a really great way to transition into communication, because I have office hours every week. Let me go to that. I'll be having office hours even during our intersession, Wednesdays and Thursdays now from 9 to 10 on Zoom. Please stop by, say hi. I'll just have them open. You can come say hi. We can talk about anything from questions about the course to questions about the content of the course. Maybe you're not quite getting, something that we're talking about, or it's not quite clicking. I'm happy to help with that. If you have further questions about philosophy, that's great. Or if you have questions about, I'm thinking about transferring next year, I want to know what these different schools might be like, I would be happy to share my experiences with you. That's why I do this little introduction in every class that I teach, because I want you to know that I am happy to talk about that and to help you bounce around ideas about what might be a good fit for you once you transfer. I've been offering this to students for years now, and I am happy to say a lot of them take me up on it, and it's really enjoyable times. So please stop by sometime. In terms of other communication, email is really good. Canvas messages is probably the best way to get a hold of me. And I say that because it has happened before. It has come to my attention way late that every now and then a student will mistype my email address. So be very careful with that. I've had an experience where a student thought that they were emailing me the whole term and that I wasn't responding. Well, it turns out eventually we connected, and the student pulled up their email, and it turned out they had a typo in the email address. So that's why I think that Canvas messages through the inbox is probably the best way to get a hold of me. Those notifications go straight to my email, so I'll see it pretty soon. But importantly, comments on assignments I don't get notifications for that. I don't know. They're not automatically turned on. And I think it would just blow my email up if I turn those on. So I see the comments when I'm going through grading, but if it's something urgent, please send me a message through Canvas, or if you're really careful with the email address, through my email. I do my best to respond in one business day and during business hours. So, basically 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, I will be checking my email periodically. It's intersession, so I'm not going to be probably as attentive to my email as I am during the regular semester, which is throughout the day, every day. But during intersession, I'll check it at least a couple times a day. If something comes up, just let me know. If you have a question, let me know. Happy to respond to you. But I'm going to keep that, if I see the question on a Monday, it's possible I might not get back to you until Tuesday. So that sort of setup. All right. Here is our calendar. So we have a pretty easy intersession. What I mean is, if you were taking intersession classes last year, you might have noticed the calendar was kind of off. It wasn't a nice crisp, clean Monday through Friday, but we do have that this year, so it's great. So here's our schedule, right? Like here's our snapshot. Think of this calendar as a snapshot. This is available on Canvas, and I've called it the calendar. This is different from a couple other documents that we'll see in just a moment. So every week our modules open. They're open Monday through Friday. Okay, so what that means is that like at 8 o'clock on Monday mornings, the weekly module will open for you. And then the work is always due on Fridays at like 11:59. Okay, so you have all day Friday to do that. Now what you'll see here is that weeks 1, 2, and 3 have what I call grace periods. And what I mean by that is if you need a couple extra days, if you want to catch up with things over the weekend, I know a lot of you probably have jobs, maybe family responsibilities, things like that. So if you need the weekend to help you catch up, that's fine. I won't apply a late penalty until after that grace period expires. All right, so we just have 4 weeks. 4 weeks. What that means is that everything we normally do in a regular 16-week semester is condensed to 4 weeks. All right, so if we were meeting in person, we would have 13 and a half class time hours per week. What that means is like we would have almost 4 hours 4 days a week. Like let's say we had this class Monday through Thursday, it would be almost 4 hours during like for each class session. So when I have like the lecture videos and things like that, like discussions, for example, I'm thinking about like, okay, this is about 13 and a half hours per week. On top of that, you're supposed to be doing, like I would like for you to do readings and work on assignments and things like that. So please make sure that you have scheduled enough time over this next month, these next 4 weeks, to treat this like a regular semester that's condensed into 4 weeks. I have been concerned before because I've had students that have told me, oh, I'm taking a full load during intersession. And I'm like, no, this one class, maybe 2 classes max should be your full load, right? So you have academic counselors to talk to about all of these things. So I'm not going to get too detailed with my feedback there unless you want to talk during office hours. But I just really advise you to think about the schedule that we would have if we were in person, how many hours a day you can commit to this class, all right? Because I am literally taking everything I do in a 16-week semester and condensing it. There are a couple minor exceptions of like ways in which I have less work in this intersession class, but really it's just like instead of having 16 discussions, we're going to have 4 because it doesn't make sense to have more than 1 discussion per week. So that kind of stuff. And there's another assignment that we will have 1 less of, like you'll write a short essay. In a 16-week semester, we have 2 short essays, but we don't really have time to develop that here. So we're just going to have 1 short essay here. But other than that, I'm really expecting all of the same sorts of work that we would do in a regular semester, 16-week semester. All right, so think of each week as like a month of class. All right, so a little bit more about expectations then. You have on Canvas, you have available to you several course documents. The most important one, of course, is the syllabus that outlines all of the class policies and grading, for example. So this is probably something you're curious about. This is what your grade is composed of. So over here we have weekly quizzes. Our weekly quizzes will not be timed. They will be open book, but please not open AI. Please just test your own knowledge for this. You will only get to submit them once, but there's no time limit and you can use your reading materials and notes and all of that for it. Exams, we will have 2 exams, each worth 15%. First exam will be at the end of, or like during week 2, and second exam will be during week 4. Spotlight project. This is a fun project. I'll introduce you to it in this first week. But basically you're creating a virtual poster of a current day philosopher. So somebody who is currently contributing to the academic field of philosophy. And it's just a fun way to learn about like what sort of work is happening now. Because a lot of times in philosophy, our focus is like ancient early modern period or stuff like that, but more historical. So I want you to get a sense of what this field has to offer today. We will have 4 discussions. These are going to be similar to probably discussions that you have in all of your online classes if you've taken online classes before, where I will ask you to write a post and then respond to 2 classmates. Now, the thing about the discussions in this course is that I try to make them so that you do not need to do any prep work for it. What I mean by that is like when you start the discussion, like it could be the first thing you do even before you do any readings. And actually, I kind of prefer that. The discussions are meant to capture your like natural intuitions about these philosophical topics. So don't procrastinate on them. I encourage you to do them early. I'll respond to about a quarter of all the posts. Usually I start with like the students who submitted first, because it's difficult to reply to everybody, but please know that I am reading them all. It's just, I want to be able to manage my time and also reply to other assignments and give you feedback on essay stuff and all of that. So I respond to about a quarter of the posts. I can't respond to all of them all the time, but I try to prioritize the people who have posted early for that. And topic analyses then. So you will be writing a short essay here. And again, I'll tell you more about that also in the week 1 module. But this short essay is basically a way for you to gain some philosophical, critical reasoning skills. Right, so I want you to think about one of the topics we cover and then take a couple of views that come up in that topic and kind of compare and contrast them. Think about what makes sense to you, evaluate them. Let us know like if you think anything is missing from it or if you think it does a good job of capturing how you think about this topic. All right, so that's pretty much a snapshot of the stuff we'll be doing. In Canvas, under the syllabus tab, I have a copy of your syllabus. I have what I've called a reading and assignment schedule. So that's basically like a list of all the readings that I'd like you to do for each week and what assignments are due each week. All right, so you get a little bit of that in the calendar I showed you a couple slides ago, but this is a little bit more thorough. We also have what I call a flexibility policy. So when it comes to flexibility about like missing deadlines or getting exceptions to due dates or things like that, I try really hard to be consistent. What I mean by that is I like to apply flexibility universally. I don't want whether I give an exception to a student to be based on like my emotional reaction to their circumstances. So what I've done is like, I don't want it to be like, oh, I feel, empathy towards this student to this degree. And so I'm going to give them this much of an exception or this, it's okay for them to miss these many assignments. Whereas another student, maybe I have like, maybe I don't understand their situation as much, so I'm going to give less. Like, I don't want it to be like that at all. I want it to be any flexibility that happens in our class. I want it to be equally available to everyone, regardless of like what's going on. So in that way, a lot of students I've found also could really use flexibility, but don't ask for it. And if I have to think about the kind of student I was too, there were certainly times that I could have used some flexibility from my professors, but I was too scared or like nervous, apprehensive to actually ask for that. Or like really, I didn't know that that's something you could do. I didn't realize that people were just randomly sometimes asking for extensions on due dates and things like that. So the way I try to handle this is to be as fair as possible. So I have a flexibility policy, which gives a little bit of wiggle room for assignments. That's where the grace period comes in. So for this class, that's going to be most of the flexibility we see. You can turn in work up until the last day of the term, which is Friday, January 30th. If it's late, meaning it's after those grace periods, then there will be a 10% point deduction, late penalty on it, but I'll still take it. So happy to do that. So our flexibility policy outlines all of that. I want to be really clear too that if you look at that calendar we had a couple slides ago, week 4 does not have a grace period. And that's because the term ends on Friday, January 30th. So I'm not taking any work after that. the next day literally starts our spring semester. So if you look at our academic calendar, you'll see that that's a hard deadline, cutoff right there. In our syllabus tool on Canvas, I also have some AI guidelines. I'll talk about those more later on as well. The AI guidelines here, I just want you to have a good sense of what I think is okay and not okay in terms of AI use in this class. So I'll outline all of that there. So more on that in another way. So we'll be using Canvas every week. If you're new to Canvas, feel free to reach out to me if you have questions. If you want to make sure that like you're getting what you should out of there, I'd be happy to chat with you during Zoom to kind of show you around a little bit. OCC uses Canvas. We're all, most of your professors have probably used that. So I assume that most people are familiar with it, but if you're not familiar with it and you want to chat about it, please reach out. I'm happy to do that. All right, and then finally we have our readings. Most of our readings, maybe half of our readings or so, will come from an online textbook. So this is free. It's online through the OCC library. And we are going to be reading selected chapters out of that textbook. Importantly, we are not reading the textbook cover to cover. When you look at the textbook online, what you'll find is that it is organized into different parts, and each one of those parts has a few chapters in it. Importantly, when I give you reading assignments, like on this reading and assignment schedule and throughout the modules, I'm referring to chapters only. I'm never going to be asking you to read an entire part. Okay, so there's really just like selected chapters here and there that I'm asking you to read. And we will also be having different readings outside of our textbook that I have already for you, prepared for you. And so these are all PDFs and they'll be available on Canvas as well. So just different articles that I think are helpful for us to understand these various topics that we'll be discussing. All right, so for example, for the week 1 module, we're going to start with an introduction. The first lecture topic that we will have is an introduction to philosophy. We'll talk about intellectual virtues and artificial intelligence. So to prepare yourself for that, what I suggest you read is the introduction to the Pritchard book, our textbook. And that's just a couple pages. It's just like maybe 3 pages or something like that. There's also a podcast episode that I'd like you to listen to. So this is a really great way for us to start talking about intellectual virtues. I do want to point out that there are a lot of ads in this podcast. It's one of my favorite podcasts, Hidden Brain. It's a psychology podcast where psychologists, sometimes very well-known psychologists, come and are interviewed on this podcast. And so Adam Grant is the psychologist that's interviewed in this particular one. It's a great podcast, but yes, they have lots of commercials. So if that bothers you, I also have a transcript of it linked in our course module, in our week 1 module, that you can click on that and just kind of read through it if you think that's a better way for you to engage with it. I have a short article for you by Metcalf on artificial intelligence. And then a crash course philosophy video for you on AI as well to kind of help us share the same language that I'll be discussing in our lecture video. The crash course philosophy video is probably like 10 minutes or so, something around there. All right. Well, thanks everybody. And I am looking forward to meeting you all. All right.